This is normal Spongebob, aka Spongebob going through an identity crisis and completely losing himself. This happens in the episode Not Normal. The episode starts with Squidward sleeping peacefully until he's woken up by SpongeBob's loud laughing. So of course he's mad and he storms out of his house. And we see SpongeBob running all around his pineapple all happy. So he confronts him and yells at him to stop. And this part is kind of sad because after Squidward asks what he's doing, he simply just says,
"I'm just having a decent morning."
SpongeBob may be inconsiderate of his neighbors by being loud, but dude's just such a genuinely happy dude and gets so much hate from Karen Squidward. So then Squidward tells SpongeBob that he's not normal, which makes him really insecure and he gets really sad. This is what starts SpongeBob's identity crisis, and he starts to really bug out because he literally teleports to Squidward's house begging him to teach him how to be normal. So Squidward gives him some great advice. I'm just kidding, he literally throws him out of his house. And to top it off, he yells at him,
"Get away from me, you little creature."
If you're not familiar with SpongeBob lore, SpongeBob genuinely really cares for Squidward. Like, this dude really loves him. And usually when he says stuff like this, it doesn't really bother him. But this episode makes me question that, because you can tell all he wants to do is be liked by Squidward, and that's such a sad reality. So anyway, SpongeBob is upset and thinks something's wrong with him. So he gets this videotape called How to Be Normal, with this Brad looking type of fish as the host. Brad shows us the life of a normal person, and we see this uncomfortable backrooms looking neighborhood, and we meet Mr. Normal, who even the Brad fish claims looks boring. This could have been a sign to SpongeBob early on that being normal is boring, but he's so caught up on making Squidward like him that the only thing he took from this was becoming insecure that he doesn't look like Mr. Normal. Then we watch as the normals work that typical 9-to-5 office job, and we learn a key component of being normal, which is communication, which I guess just consists of saying, "Hi, how are you?" That's literally it. Then we see Mr. Normal go home to start this cycle again, which sounds very boring. But SpongeBob doesn't think so and wastes absolutely no time trying to be normal, which catches Squidward off guard when SpongeBob isn't being loud. So he goes to investigate. And there SpongeBob is at his little office desk, delivering the perfect normal conversation starter, "Hi, how are you?" Also, his voice changed and it's very monotone now. Squidward does not believe that SpongeBob is now normal and is in extreme shock. Then Mr. Krabs comes in from somehow the back of the kitchen, which in the previous scene, this is what the back of the wall looked like. Where did this dude come from? Anyways, he's confronting SpongeBob about not making Krabby Patties. So homeboy just prints him out the computer like Finn Lockwood, and this makes Mr. Krabs happy. And this part might not seem like all that, but it's really sad how both Squidward and Mr. Krabs seemed happy, with SpongeBob being an entirely different person. Oh, also SpongeBob's pineapple is a normal house now, but this confirms to Squidward that this is real, and SpongeBob gets to watch again just how happy Squidward and Mr. Krabs are. We literally get a montage of Squidward and Mr. Krabs just extremely happy, jumping up with glee. And we also watch as SpongeBob's square starts to get more round. Now this roundness is important. I believe SpongeBob decided the first day to test being normal to see how he'd be treated. His square self symbolizes the original SpongeBob. So at that time, SpongeBob was genuinely his true self and just trying to act normal to see the outcome. But through the montage and through seeing how happy everyone was, he starts to become round, losing himself to the normality and slowly forgetting who he is just to please others. Things don't go perfect though, and the nice montage takes a turn when a fish chows down on a paper Krabby Patty, which then makes him leave, and he starts a trend and every other fish leaves too. This makes Mr. Krabs furious, because now he's losing money. So finally, after 3 weeks, someone confronts SpongeBob's new persona. And by someone, I mean Mr. Krabs. He first tells him he can't make Krabby Patties with ink and paper, and needs to make them like he used to make them. But low-key, he can, because he was doing it for 3 weeks. But that's besides the point. He tells him he needs to stop acting so dull. Even though it's great someone finally confronted this new normal round Bob, it's too late. He's way off the deep end and he's round now. And he loses his job because he'd rather be normal and not cook patties the old way. And then he meets up with Patrick. And somehow Patrick has not seen SpongeBob in 3 weeks. Very odd. But Patrick is obviously confused why SpongeBob is now round Bob. But either way, he tries to ask to go jellyfishing, and SpongeBob wants to go window shopping. And every time Patrick asks to do something fun, SpongeBob tries suggesting some boring activities. And Patrick isn't a fan. So now SpongeBob has lost his job and his best friend, all because of being normal. But it's okay, because he visits Squidward, who now likes him. And Squidward actually invites him in. And they're having a very civil, nice conversation, and Squidward looks extremely happy. Thing is though, SpongeBob starts picking on Squidward now for not being normal. How ironic. And now SpongeBob is making Squidward insecure, and Squidward kicks him out. And SpongeBob finally, after 3 weeks, realizes changing your entire personality is not the answer to get people to like you, and realizes he lost everything being normal, so he needs to be square again. He tries to just morph himself into his old self, but it doesn't work and he's still round. Like I said earlier, I think the roundness of SpongeBob is more of showing his mental state and it's not a physical state whatsoever. Since he can't just morph himself into old SpongeBob, he does the next best thing. ask Patrick how to be weird again. So the first thing they do is go into the city in their underwear. And this is a great lesson as well. When you are so caught up in being quote unquote normal, you get self-conscious just like SpongeBob here, caring what the other fish think of him. Patrick, on the other hand, could care less because he's comfortable with who he is. But besides some insecurities, he slides his underwear on the slip inside and flies into the zoo. And we watch as one of his craters come back. So they go jellyfishing, and SpongeBob is riding Patrick like a horse, but he gains another crater. Then Homeboy licks some sand, does a handstand, drinks some secret Krabby sauce with his literal feet, which is gross, and gains his 2 teeth back. And we see a glowing light, as Round Bob is about to change back to SpongeBob, but then boom, SpongeBob goes right back into his round self, and it seems he's permanently normal. And SpongeBob and Patrick start crying, until Patrick's rock starts to open, and it's Squidward, and he's normal.
Hi, how are you?
And because of this, it scares SpongeBob right back to his old self, and he gives Squidward a hug, and the episode ends. Before I talk about what I liked about this episode, I want to talk about this scene really quick. So this scene on the surface seems funny, and kind of seems like SpongeBob transforming back was because of how scary looking or funny Squidward looked. At least that's what I got from my first watch as a kid, but now watching it, I realize he's scared for an entirely different reason. SpongeBob now firsthand gets to see what happened to him. He pretty much just finally got a reality check and saw into a mirror. Squidward did exactly what SpongeBob did. SpongeBob made him insecure and he became something he thought he needed to be to quote unquote be perfect. And SpongeBob realized in this moment he never had to become someone else to be loved. This is proven as well when SpongeBob hugs Squidward at the end with love. Because for SpongeBob, he loves Squidward as a person no matter normal or not. This episode had great life lessons and I love that. I love how SpongeBob could take such a serious topic that people really struggle with and make it into an entertaining, fun, sad, amazing 11-minute episode. As a kid watching this episode, it was genuinely just a funny episode, but now watching it as an adult, you just start seeing deeper meanings behind things. I really respect SpongeBob for trying to teach kids to be yourself and not care what other people think of you because it's such an important thing to love yourself. Not to mention, it even has some life lessons for adults. The episode talks about the cycle of being an adult, which a lot of adults struggle with. And this episode pretty much shows how to deal with the cycle, and it's to let that kid side of yourself out and still have fun. I also think this episode contributes a lot to the lore of SpongeBob. From other episodes, it's easy to assume SpongeBob doesn't care what Squidward thinks and ignores it, and he's just a fun, silly, positive person, and no one can ever ruin his mood. But in this episode, it does a huge 180, and it kind of makes me see SpongeBob differently. Honestly, I thought SpongeBob was unaware that people thought he was annoying, and honestly, I thought he tortured people on purpose, not gonna lie. But now after seeing this episode, I realize his emotions are much more complex than I ever would have imagined. From the context of this episode, and seeing how insecure SpongeBob got from Squidward's comments, it leads me to believe SpongeBob is aware people think he's annoying and the negative comments, but tries his hardest to block them out and stay positive, even though it hurts him. This episode shows SpongeBob wants to be liked, and it finally got to him. Not to mention, it also shows some friendship dynamic between SpongeBob and Squidward. Squidward openly hates SpongeBob. And I mean, throughout the episode, it seems like he still hates SpongeBob, but only likes Round Bob. So what am I saying? Well, in the end, Squidward changed himself because of SpongeBob, which is so crazy to me. Squidward has such a I don't care narcissist personality, and it's so unbelievable that SpongeBob made him insecure and want to change. And the first person he went to after becoming normal was SpongeBob to show him his new self for validation. Pretty crazy. Anyways, this episode is just wonderful. It checks all the boxes needed to make a great episode. The pacing is just wonderful too. It has a very fast intro, explains the episode very quickly, and then progresses the story really well, as we are intrigued with seeing SpongeBob's transformation, then seeing his downfall, and then being curious if he will ever go back to his normal self. And while you are on the edge of your seat, there are countless jokes throughout, and it's just so good. I still be saying, "Hi, how are you?" to this day. I don't know why, but that's just so funny to me. But yeah, this episode was golden, and "Hi, how are you?" will be stuck in my head forever. But yeah, that's just me talking about SpongeBob, the normal episode of SpongeBob, the normal identity crisis, SpongeBob talking normal